So I am just stoked to see some familiar faces and some new faces. And I know we usually have people trickle in, but we have a lot to get to tonight. So I'm just gonna dive right in. This is one of our monthly Women in the Bicycle Industry series events. The intent of these conversations is to inspire, to bring us together, to maybe leave you with that little bit of something you can relate to and like just kind of be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna think about that. Women bicycle store managers is very close to my heart as a manager for 15 years. It's a role that some of us can play in and own, and it's a role that maybe others want to get to. It's a very trying role. You have to be very dynamic and just it changes every day. This is part 2 of a series, and I'm super excited to present tonight's guest. Before I do that, Rachelle Scouten is here. She is amazing. She is the NBDA development director. Rachelle, anything on like the back end with tech stuff? Because you're the Zoom wizard, we all know.
Just that we love open discussion, and there's going to be a lot of back and forth with our speaker today. If you've been to previous ones, we kind of make it an open discussion. This one we're going to try to keep comments toward the end because like Heather said, we have a lot to get through, but we love to see people in the chat, so using that chat to kind of talk in between questions and things like that. If right on the top, if you're not in our Facebook group, we would love to have you in the Facebook group. I can put that link in. I think that's it.
I love that. Yeah. And we are like busy thinking about 2022 events and just putting more interesting topics on the agenda for each month. So if you have any ideas, if you want to come and be the guest speaker, just reach out to us. We are so approachable and just willing to make anything happen. So without further ado, I want to present Mo Trainor. She is the manager at BJ's Sport Shop, and I'm probably gonna kill this, but in Minocqua, Wisconsin. Was that right?
It's Ojibwa, but Minocqua.
All right, I didn't practice that. So
That's
that was
okay. Everybody's got to lose that virginity at some point. So yeah.
Minocqua, I got it. So Mo has been partnered with the bicycle industry for more than 20 years. She's a past professional short and long course triathlete. She started an actual Pacific Northwest triathlon business called Train or Try. She's been a coach to amateur or elite or pro level triathletes, an experienced bike fitter. She worked with the largest bicycle retailer, which is Conte, one of the largest bicycle retailers, Conte's Bicycle Group, and she managed their Florida. She was the director of their fitting and bicycle performance in Florida. There's just so much to go on here. Right now, she has moved back to her, I think it's your hometown, and I know we'll get into this, and you're managing BJ's Sport Shop and Bike Shop. And it's owned by an expanding boat rental and retail company called Your Boat Club. We have just so much to get into, and I just want to say I was very fortunate to meet Mo at Cabda Midwest, and Mo just approached me and we just had the best conversation, and just our friendship kind of blossomed from there. And we've been so busy planning this that we haven't really had a time just to talk about, hey, what's up? So we have a lot to get into, and I think you're all going to find that Mo is just amazing. So Mo, hello.
Hey, thank you. I have pleasure to be here, and very flattered at the same time to have this honorary time with you folks to introduce myself, my role and past roles in the industry, as well as what I'm currently doing back here in the Midwest, having grown up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, but now in Minocqua, and blossoming. So happy to be here. Couldn't be more grateful. So thank you.
I mean, reading your bio, and we were just talking about ultra running, I want to know how you got into professional triathlon racing.
That's a loaded one. The irony of that for me is it really started as a dare. No kidding. So as I was always a competitive athlete growing up, just to kind of keep it all in a tight nutshell. both my sister and I grew up as competitive swimmers. We were junior Olympic swimmers. I swam all the way through, started when I was 6, all the way through high school. But once I got to university, that kind of toned down. The university I attended out in Bellingham, Washington, which we'll get to a little later, didn't have a swim team. They had a sailing team and other unusual things, but no swim team. I ran track in high school, but I will say that I was never the fastest rabbit out of the chute when the gun went off. It was always, oh, the gun went off, maybe we should go. Maybe that was a clue that I should be more of an endurance athlete than a quick twitch muscle athlete. And then riding, that was something that happened later, in all honesty. I didn't get my first racing bike or acquainted with racing bikes until I was 19 years old. So I was a red shirt for a couple of years at Western Washington University's soccer team. And I decided, team sports, I don't know, maybe I need to do something different. So I needed to challenge myself with the idea of an independent sport. And that's when I found Fairhaven Cyclery, just down the hill from Western Washington University in Bellingham, where I got introduced to a really cool group of guys. And I will say it, there were no women in my riding circle at the time. This is in the mid to early 80s. So it didn't mean women didn't ride bikes back then, but I didn't have any in that circle. So I learned the hard way how to do everything. And a lot of it was falling in a Peloton ride and learning all the tactics as far as that goes, all the way into catapulting me into even velodrome riding at the time. So track riding, I discovered, really wasn't for me either, and picking myself up a fair amount there as well. But you can kind of see where this is all coalescing together, but it gave me the foundation to kickstart what eventually became my introduction into triathlon. I literally had friends say to me, you already do these 3 things separately. Why not put them all together? And I thought, well, why would anyone ever want to do 3 things back to back? So I took that as a dare, and lo and behold, I wound up participating in my first community event there in Bellingham, Lake Padden Triathlon, which was small in numbers at the time. Maybe 150 people showed up. Not anymore today, which we'll talk about a little bit later as far as Trainer Tri's role goes. But I did everything wrong that you could think of. Again, I didn't have the right clothes. I had to borrow a wetsuit. I had the racing bike. Didn't really follow a training plan or brick workouts. That was foreign to me. So I just showed up and participated, essentially. I wouldn't call it racing yet. I came out of that one a little scarred. I had an upside down, my favorite part of this, I had an upside down smiley face on my bum for about 2 weeks because the chamois back then were that hard leather with not much cream on it. And I didn't have tri shorts. I didn't know what that was. So, it wasn't the most comfortable thing to have to walk through for roughly 2 weeks, but that blossomed into 8 years eventually of short course Team USA racing on a very elite level. All of that catapulted me into a time period for 8 years where I was winning, people were paying attention, the sponsorships followed, and so on. And then what I also realized about myself was Olympic distance for me as a short course racer felt like sprinting to me. My body was not really built to be a sprinter. I mentioned I'm not quick out of the gate, but as a runner, but once my engine gets going, I'm good. So endurance racing came about slowly because of that. My sponsors seemed to want to stay on board with me. two of which I will proudly say, Medtronic, St. Jude Medical. I am a heart patient, so I have had the proud affiliation of working with Medtronic, St. Jude Medical for the majority of my racing career as a professional triathlete. So that 8 years catapulted me forward. My pro cards followed into long course for iron distance. Iron distance became my full-time job for over 11 years. And as far as that goes, winning is a job. You get paid to show up and perform at a very high level in 3 different sports. So I think it's imperative that whether it's short course or long course, the status quo that gets built for you or put upon you in terms of pressure is very, very real. No different than I would put on maybe some of my athletes when I coach them. So short to long course racing for me was almost a stint of 20 years. So eventually time catches up with you, and it's time to maybe take a back seat sometimes to other athletes and how they're pushing forward in the sport. So I raced during a time period, for instance, when the women in the sport of triathlon were just starting to get their feet wet. In fact, it really truly wasn't until about 2014 when the first women's Team USA squad was, put together in a healthy way. So if you think about it, NCAA rules in any sport were not the most effective at supporting women as athletes. So, this is, was groundbreaking time period. So, yeah, it all started on a dare, whether it was short course or long course.
A dare turns into like 20 years later. And show of hands, anyone on the call, has anyone raced triathlon before? Has done an Ironman or, yeah, Ellen? I mean, just the pressure.
No, just kidding. Yeah, sorry.
Pressure you put on yourself, and that's with racing or even with your role, your day-to-day job. There's so much pressure we put on ourselves. But you were working during the same time. How did you manage working and racing professionally at the same time?
Not easy. I would have to say that, I'd have to back it up by 2 things. Before I owned Trainer Tri, which is part of moving forward in this overall progression of short course to long course, wins or no wins. I started out in my life professionally as an academic. So I'm a tenured English professor. So I taught for 11 and a half years. And I was at a point in my life with racing and training, which was perfect at that time because my summers are off, right? So what athlete wouldn't want that much free time to train and race? So that equation worked out great. But I was at that point where I transitioned into the idea of if I don't jump now, meaning to open my own business, which I had a passion to do. It had never been done before in the community of Bellingham, which is a huge multi-sport mecca out there in the Pacific Northwest. I wasn't, it probably would have never come about. So I just took the risk, walked away from academia, opened up my own business, knew nothing, never ran a business before in my life, wore every single hat. So yes, burning both ends of the candle was how training and racing happened. Very early mornings, very late nights. Spin class became another medium for me or vehicle through which I could get extra time on the bike. you name it. So along with coaching, that was a part of one of the services I offered through my business. So training and racing got done around all of these things. And yes, having additional people on staff, part-time people, did it ease things up? Sure. But at the end of the day, it still came down to me in terms of what had to be managed in-house in terms of maintaining the storefront itself for a swim, bike, run in the Pacific Northwest, as well as what I represented for my athletes that I coached, whether it was team and training or trainer triathlete athlete squads, all the way to I'd say events. So, but I think it's never easy, in all honesty. So, would I do it again, or could I do it again? I don't think I could do all that again, obviously, but there are certain things that I would say you want to make sure, if you're somebody who wants to get into that line of work, that you want to make sure that you have in place for yourself. I know that's one of the things we want to talk about, but for me, I was fortunate to have 3 things that I made aware for myself that I must have in order to do these things. One was time. You have 3 sports to train and run a business. So you have to build those things in and around your type A personality to get things done. I needed to make sure, in attempt to move the business forward with coaching as part of the service, as well, that I had certain things allocated to me. I needed to have a community in terms of numbers of people within that community to help support the business and make it viable and grow athletes out of it, basically, if you think about it, right? The other thing is I needed to make sure I also had the amenities around me to support it, whether it was pools, lakes, oceans, safe riding routes that had multiple terrain options in front of me, tracks, good trail systems to run safely on as well. That's kind of a loaded response, but it kind of gives you a platform when you think about the big picture. Is it easy to race it, own it, coach it, do all of those things together? Hell no, it's not. It's very, very exhausting. So sometimes I look back at that, and I know I said this to Heather the first time, I don't know how I did it all sometimes. I truly don't. When I look back at it, sometimes I think, wow. So anyhow, so
I'm just thinking, okay, so you're doing all this, and then how did the bike fitting come along? How did you get started in bike fitting?
Yeah, that was one of the catapults, to be honest. It just sort of, I was being asked, so Trainer Tri opened, my business opened in about 2004, really. Because I was the only multi-sport swim, bike, run dedicated storefront sandwiched between Seattle, Washington and Vancouver, Canada. I was a destination. I mean, people traveled, elite professional athletes constantly traveling, training in that area. So I was hit on hard by elite level athletes and amateur athletes alike that were looking for those services for TT bikes, tri bikes, high-end performance road bikes. Those are my specialties in fitting. And it just kind of circumvented out of that. People would ask, and I thought, maybe I should dabble in that. Maybe I should start doing that. And that's where Paul Swift came into my life with Bike Fit. So Bike Fit was my first exposure to fitting methodologies in terms of 2D capture, let alone hands-on interface with customers, from the feet up. As Paul would say, you work from the back of the bike, bottom up, forward, right? So I got very good at that, and really enjoyed, rider biomechanics mixed with bike geometry. It was just a natural meld. And for me, coming at things also as a professional athlete and triathlete racing, as a roadie and TT rider and tri bike rider. It was easy for me to look at riders and just start picking apart problems visually without even anyone being in the stand. You just ride right next to them and pick up on those things. So Paul was my, my first first affiliation in the industry. And ironically, Paul being from Kenosha, Wisconsin, and a track racer at that, for that matter, velodrome rider. So it was perfect melding of enthusiasm and in the fit passion was there, obviously. After Paul came Retool. That was later. And Retool was, that blew my mind away when fit bikes started to come out. I mean, back when I started fitting over, 20 years ago, things were, plumb bob. Nobody really uses that stuff too much anymore. So it doesn't mean they're not still reliable means of measuring riders' geometry on the bike for stack and reach and whatever. But it's everybody's jumping into motion capture setups and fit bikes. So Retool allowed me to make that next leap, right? The cool thing, though, when I look at the blending of bike fit and Retool methodologies is, it gives you that solid foundation to be able to approach riders in terms of off the bike biomechanics, which is really what Retool, they do that very well. Off the bike assessment, and being able to diagnose with riders' injury history, biomechanics and whatnot, and then take that, transfer it onto the fit bike. Yep, you've got a world of numbers up there to analyze and try to transfer that rider's problem into a safer, effective, more comfortable, efficient mode of riding. But at the same time, no different than Ann Barnes said, if you take all that data away, it still comes down to you, the fitter, right? It's the tool in your hand and the knowledge that you wield. So if you take all that away and you don't know the basics well, which is what Paul gave me, then I don't know how well you're going to grow your fit industry. So fitting came into play really with the initiation of Paul, jumping into Retool being probably if not the largest motion capture setup in the industry. That allowed me to catapult my fitting side of the business into a whole nother level. Yeah.
Paul Swift is amazing. I want to just pause here. Does anyone have any questions for Mo up to now on her training or racing or coaching or getting into fit? Anyone have any questions? All right. Well, I have one, so I'm going to keep rolling if it's okay with you. We had Ann Barnes on, and we did a Women in the Bicycle Industry on female bike fitters, and I didn't really get this question that I've been seeking answered, and maybe you could help me. I want to know if female bike fitters fill a specific need for female riders looking for a fit versus like a female going to a male fitter. I know it might be a weird question, but I'm just wondering if there's a reason that women should seek out another woman, or in your experience in this profession.
Well, I think that's an awesome question. I also think it's a loaded question too. I would first of all say, and I think this is kind of in keeping with what Ann said, that in my mind, if your skills are honed well, it shouldn't matter whether you're a male or a female fitter working with a male. If you're a female fitter working with a male, or vice versa, male working with a female, I think where the question becomes imperative, particularly for the rider and their comfort zone, is with a female fitter being the best option perchance simply because their understanding of female genitalia, female Q angles, versus male Q angles, so on and so forth. That's where things, the seeds part, in my mind. But
Yeah.
once again, I mean, is it more comfortable for a female rider to work with a female fitter simply for that reason? Probably, in terms of talking about, as I said, particularly when it comes to saddles, genitalia, and position on the bike, from the bottom up and what's going on. So same thing for guys. I think what's interesting as a female, in my role as a fitter, and this has happened to me numerous times. Well, people aren't always sure who Mo is. Is that a girl or a boy? Number one. So when I walk out and they think, oh, this is your fitter, and I'm like, yep. So I just listen and watch and pay attention to the rider and their language, body language, as they ride and or talk to me, and slowly start to break down the barrier through my knowledge base, and try to do it without arrogance, with it all possible, or when at all possible. But I think there is ease for the rider, sure, to adopt a female rider, female fitter, male rider, male fitter. I get it. But I have no problem working with male riders, so on and so forth. In my mind, it should not matter. But if I will accommodate, whatever, if I have a fitter on staff, and all of a sudden, the rider, decides, hey, I would rather work with Jeff today, or Hanaro, whomever the case might be. So I'd say, sure, let me get them, but it depends on the level of fit. So yeah, I think that was fairly long-winded answer. Sorry, but I think there is a distinction, but I still believe it comes down to who wields the most knowledge and who holds the tool better and uses the tool better to fix the problem. So
yeah, it's a hard question, and I don't have the answer. I don't know if any of us really do, but I love your answer. I love your take on that. So talk to us about Conte's. Conte's is just so well known and respected. And I know they're even still expanding. How did you get started with Conte's?
Yeah, good question. So I was at a point with Trainer Tri in Bellingham, where I felt as though after, roughly 18 years in that community, again, remember that race, 150 people. By the time I left that community, Lake Padden's Tri is always touted to move into the USAT sanctioning. Problem there being for that event, it's in a park, and we can only have so much foot traffic on the trail system that we use for the race, so on and yada yada yada. But that particular event, by the time I chose to move on with Conte's with Trainer Tri, was over, well over 2,000 athletes. And I'm talking people that travel from all over the United States, let alone Canada or other parts of the world, that happen to use Lake Padden's community event because the course is that hard as a training event. So that's telling in my mind. So in terms of Conte's, I was at a place, like I said, where I felt like I kind of maxed out the community in terms of potential there with my business. I also wanted to see what else I could grow with another company. And ironically, Conte's was looking for someone to help move them into the Southeast, in particular the Florida market. They saw my skill set as a business owner, but as a master fitter, as a high-end road TT tri person, also with the idea of helping them grow their road triathlon coaching market, influence their purchasing and high end, all of that. They needed someone to come down, run that for them, help them grow their other storefronts, build those out, train the fitters, help train the staff. So that became my new role as their director, unexpectedly. So it was a big undertaking to advance to, and I spent a lot of time shuttling between Fort Lauderdale, Boca Raton, Boynton Beach area, in just super intense. Florida is an extremely intense bike market. Probably the most intense bike market I have been part of in my career in the industry as a woman, in a store setup. So and I learned a tremendous amount from Conte's and their model and what they've grown. And I have nothing but respect for them. They still do a tremendous, promote a tremendous business and service wherever they go. Their reputation precedes them, obviously. I have had a great experience with them. So, but I was also at a point, even with them, where I needed to decide if they're wanting me to move forward again was the right thing. And I just chose to step away. The pandemic had started also. So I came back to the Midwest, thinking I would go back to Washington, where I still have a home. But I chose to stop here where family is in the Midwest. I grew up in Green Bay, and thought I would spend some time up in the North Woods of Wisconsin, and happened upon a small bike shop here, affiliated with a sport shop called BJ's Sport Shop and BJ's Bike Shop, and just walked in the door and saw what was happening. And I thought, maybe they could use a little Mo love in here on some level, not knowing what was about to unfold and on any level, in a positive sense. And I took that as a sign that this is probably a serendipitous thing that was unfolding. And I choose to, pretty much come full circle in a way in my life with where athleticism started for me and bringing it home, so to speak. So.
Yeah, you just life is just unfolding and you just have to trust it, right?
Yeah, and I'm still doing it. So yeah, it's growing exponentially as we speak. So yeah.
So here you are, and your current role is shop manager for BJ's Bike Shop. Tell us a little bit about that, what that entails, and what you walked into and any changes. I mean, you've been in your role now for I think a couple of months. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not quite sure.
Actually, it's we're getting close to 8 months now, okay. And it's morphing already in a positive way, to completely positive way. So BJ's Bike Shop and BJ Sport Shop here in the Minocqua North Woods has been present for over 38 years. So there is a strong community base shop here, but a huge seasonal influx of people that come to this multi-sport area here in the Northwoods. Minocqua, Wisconsin is called the Island City. We are surrounded by lakes here. So Lake Minocqua is a massive body of water. and BJ's Bike Shop, as well as the entire sports shop, 4 separate departments, 3 separate buildings. We are all on this lake of a 41 slip marina, and owned, oddly enough, as a bike shop. We are owned by a boat company by the name of Your Boat Club, headquartered out of Minnesota, with predominant locations, 27 huge locations out of marina-based locations out of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois. As of not too many months ago, Your Boat Club joined forces with a company out of France called Groupe Beneteau. Groupe Beneteau does have a a North American division that was headquartered in Annapolis, Maryland, and is in the heavy process of moving to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So you can kind of sense where some of this progression is going. Your Boat Club, Groupe Beneteau, but particularly Groupe Beneteau's North American division, they are the manufacturers and owners of some major boats in the industry: Glastron, Scarab, Four Winds, Wellington boats, and more. These guys are bringing their interest in growing active family-based lifestyles in the boating and biking world to a bigger platform. So BJ's is kind of serving as the model for that right now. And what we're trying to do here is grow the concept of essentially boat bike rental retail at major marina locations throughout North America and Europe. So my role just got catapulted, like I've done in the triathlon industry. It just got catapulted to another broader level in a positive way, which I'm sure we'll get to. But these guys they have a very unique business model. I have never ever in my 20 some odd years in the bike industry ever heard of a bike shop owned by a boat company. The luxurious thing about that for us is access to positive cash flow during a time period, when you think about it, when the pandemic has really rocked the bike industry, not to mention other industries, but in terms of allocating product, whether it's bikes, build kits, whatever the case is, tying up the hands of vendors and dealers alike. But for us, it's given us the edge, I'll be honest. So just since 2020, revenue numbers were thrown at us, we have superseded those numbers by roughly 3 times in the rental retail model that is here at BJ's. So when you think about what these guys are growing, with a Midwest base in YBC, just YBC, and now with Groupe Beneteau, the YBC faction in the Midwest has over 100,000 members. So if you get each member on a bike and each child in their family on a bike, the numbers start, growing, exponentially. So these guys definitely have the intention of pushing the envelope in not just the Midwest, but major coastal regions. Over the next 5 years, as I mentioned, or may not have mentioned yet, but they plan on growing, again, 60 to 80 locations spread throughout North America and Europe. So that's a lot. That's a lot of boat bike retail, which also, as I said, catapults me forward. My current role is shop manager, is morphing as we speak into another directorship role. So I will be being moved forward for Your Boat Club, because I'm the person for them that speaks bike. I don't speak boat, but I speak bike. So I will continue on in the purchasing process, the sales process, and the rentals process as their director here in North America, as well as what we handle in those 3 subcategories of purchasing, sales, and rentals for Europe as well. So that's a lot of product to move around, and rentals to allocate, and fleets to build, mechanics to get on staff, build outs to happen in marina locations. So there's quite a bit moving forward.
This role is huge. Again, you could have never expected it was going to morph this way.
Oh.
The incredible bike boom has just left us all with, this research shows lots of new cyclists have entered our sport, and there's still many more who are going to find their way into our sport. So will you still be fitting then, hands-on, Mo? Or are you going to?
Yeah. So good question. Yes. Well, I think the importance of things there for me is, you got to keep fitting, right? I think Anne would agree with me that it's kind of like anything. You want to keep your hands in it to stay fresh and active, so you don't lose your feel for those models you mentally built up that you see the repetition in. I know what to do here in terms of assessment. I've seen this problem before. You start cataloging. So yes, I hope to keep doing it at some level, but predominantly here at BJ's, I don't have a studio here. I've had the luxury with my business, Conte's, to have dedicated studio spaces to work with riders in. I don't have that luxury here at BJ's. Might we look at the idea of doing something like that, having a dedicated fit studio here? Sure, potentially, but to add that to all the other marina platforms at the major locations that they want to do boat, bike, retail, and rental at, I don't foresee that. If I see there's a need in the near future for it, would I be willing to bring some fitters in, train them, have them on staff somewhere? Sure. But to get us going out the door, I think the goal is to keep it in-house here at BJ's. It makes it special. I mean, Northwoods fitting didn't exist until I got here. It was a foreign concept. You have to remember, this is a resort-based area. So there is such a thing up here as cabin bikes. So, even cabin bikes walk through the door that need stack and reach assessment. So it's relatively a new concept, but growing. I want to see where it can go. We're definitely getting a name for ourselves. And bear in mind, all this role transition that I'm doing, along with trying to keep fit intact here, that's going to cause me to have to bring in other people. We as a company currently in season, our biggest season, late spring through late fall. And granted, we had a very, very strange October, as I'm sure other parts of the world did, that allowed us to keep people riding, keep our rental fleet active till almost the end of October. That's unheard of up here. Usually by then we have snow. So, that's that in and of itself. When we look at that window of time, 5 to 6 months, I staff normally about 4 full-time mechanics plus myself in here, who also help on the floor. Off season, we're about 2 mechanics, and we're open 7 days a week all year long. So we are looking at, mountain this time of year, fat bike rental, you name it. Whether it's from Trek, Yeti, Wyatt, as being the predominant brands that we cater to, but I'm going to need a replacement me in theory to move forward. I need a service manager right now. So anybody who's watching, I need a service manager, and we need to hire more staff. All of these locations that we intend to build out, I will be helping to interview for those locations throughout North America and Europe. So yeah, it's a never-ending process right now.
It's such a big role that you're taking on, and I just want to like kind of bring it back to some of the people who might be on our call and just relatable nuggets. If you could give yourself, like your younger self, right, some advice as you were like traveling through the industry, is there anything that you would maybe reflect on now and be like, I should have, it would have been awesome if I knew that?
Yeah, that's a really good one. Great question. I like to think that it would really be, and I've had to think hard about this one, it would be to really slow down, which is kind of ironic coming from a triathlete, and say no, learn to say no more. I think early on in my career, whether it was as an athlete, a coach, a business owner, a fitter, I was saying yes to so much in order to get my name out there, to get the recognition. And I think that one of the things I've learned over time, even before I, jumped ships and moved with Conte's, it was learning to say no to fine tune my success, really, in those areas of business, athleticism, fitting, you name it. It's not possible to do everything for everybody, and I had to learn that the hard way, really. So I would say it would be slow down, and it's okay to say no. It is.
Saying no is so hard. Rachelle, mental
Yes.
note. We should have
I
a
think,
whole
yeah,
conversation based on how to say no.
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, women wanting to join the bike industry. Any advice for those who are looking at our industry like, I want to have a future role in the bicycle industry?
I would definitely say, listen. You have to be a great listener. I don't care what aspect of sales you're in. You have to listen. You have to let the customer tell their story, and be respectful of that, in order to create the right experience within the store setting, right? And advocate for what you do have to sell. That pulls them in better. So being a good listener is number one. I would have to say, and you have to be a good listener as an athlete of your coach. You have to be a good listener as a coach. You have to be an excellent listener as a bike fitter. But in addition to that, I would probably more than likely say, don't be afraid to jump into a new skill set. And I don't say that lightly. I look at what happened with me with when fitting came about. It was like, oh my God, they need a fitter. This is new to me. What do I need to do to become that? And then voila, along comes someone like Paul Swift and that skill set. Same thing with coaching. Team and Training approached me the same year I opened my store doors. I was going, oh my gosh, I don't know how many hats I can wear, before I got my coaching licensing and so on. So it forced me into a positive position of being able to use my skill set to help build something else for someone else in a positive way, to push the sport forward, right? Same thing in the bike shop here. Don't be afraid to jump through some more hoops, so to speak, or enter a new skill set to help grow your business, help push more bikes out the door, and grow your audience. I think you have to, especially in an industry that is still male dominated. No disrespect, but it's, we girls have a niche to still carve out. It's gotten better, but I think it's important to be proud of that. I know I am. And not be afraid to share your skill set with another upcoming female fitter, mechanic, whatever the case might be. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you 100% there. And you just touched on something too that made me think, what about the customers that think we can't help them because we're, because of our gender? Any tip there on how to approach that?
Yeah, this is again it kind of plays off of a little bit what I just said. I'll be honest. I could probably come up with a great example with fitting, but I think in a nutshell, it would have to be, you got to listen, right? So again, my scenario would be as a fitter, I've got that person that comes to the store, an elite male athlete who suddenly gets introduced to me and who decides that they are their best own fitter and fit themselves, yet their biomechanics try and tell me something else. It's my job to listen to their story first, see where the problems lie, whether it's in the purchase of a bike, through the bike fit, whatever the case might be. And then try to, I like to say it, just dazzle them with your knowledge base, but do it. And I know I've said this earlier as well, but I can't repeat it enough. Do it without arrogance. Share your knowledge base in order to push the product forward, whether it's the sale of that thing or the rental of that thing, or if you're growing a sport. It doesn't matter. I think listen, and then share your knowledge. It doesn't mean you're going to win them over right away, but you're going to convince them by showing them the cause and effect of what you can do as a female. So.
Well, there's so many good things we could unpack here, and I feel like an hour with you is hardly enough because we didn't even get into like your current role. Like we didn't even get, we
introduced it.
It was like more of an introduction. Anyone have any questions for Mo, or any just thoughts on anything that you heard or anything that related to you personally that you might want to share with everyone here? I mean, I'm so into the serendipitous of, the serendipity of life, right? How we just got to keep rolling and we just keep doing a good job at whatever role we're currently in, and it propels us to someplace. Does anyone have anything that, any questions for Mo or anything you want to add to the conversation?
Anybody?
Mo, being in a slightly different industry than a typical bike shop, do you feel like you guys do rentals any different because of the boat aspect of the business that you're in currently?
Good question. So rentals for us, this is a great question, actually. So BJ's as a storefront, because of the pandemic last year, 2020, had no rentals, zero. We had to take our rental fleet and sell it because, the ability to allocate the bike was the challenge at the time. We don't have that problem now. We're already forecasting for 2023. So that's not our issue anymore. But as far as the process itself goes, at this juncture, in 2021, seasonality for the BJ's Bike Shop storefront, rental flow came through in-store, walk through the door traffic. It was in-store traffic. Boats, predominantly online. So for YBC and Groupe Beneteau, the reservation process is done predominantly, I'd say more than 99% online. It is virtually impossible. I don't want to say impossible, but extremely difficult to be able to come to BJ's in our busy season and expect to get a boat by walking in the door. So online reservations in the future for us will be critical, even in the bike end of things as we grow forward into the other major marina locations. We're working on that right now heavily to get our website more 2020, or 2022, moving forward with Lightspeed. We are just bringing Bike Rental Manager on board and helping introduce other aspects of the rental business for YBC, which, at other locations, they do rent other things like snowmobiles, like side-by-sides. So it's more than just boats because of the different various or the varied soft good and hard good departments that we have. But for bikes and boats, those will be predominantly handled online in the future. Doesn't, you're still going to have an opportunity in any of our bike-related marina-based locations. And granted, every marina is not going to have bike retail or bike rental. It'll only be major hubs throughout North America and Europe. You're still going to have the ability at those marinas to come in and say, I want to reserve a bike for tomorrow in person. But I think it's the bulk of that you're going to find, like the traditional customer today isn't always walking through your door. People are shopping more and more online because of the pandemic. So even with a reservation, that's the case. So people will call before they show up. Do you have this bike? Okay, then they're going to come over. So I'm hoping that kind of answers your question in terms of the process.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, so much to just unpack here. I mean, I'm not even thinking just, how we saw at the Big Gear Show when you combine outdoor sports and bicycle retail, and there's so much opportunity for crossover too. So I really want to stay close, Mo, and hear how this goes for you and see how it unfolds. And it's nice to see the industry expanding, and it seems like your role is just about to just so congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And I think we're all excited for what's happening here at BJ's as a company, with ownership by YBC and Groupe Beneteau. I feel very fortunate to have had this role develop in front of me, and be asked to grow into this new role for them and serve as their bike guru. And I will always be present in some layering here at the storefront. But I think as we move forward and I look at selecting the next service manager, the next person to fill my shoes here, there's a lot of work ahead of us. And who knows, I hope it's a girl, in terms of that wants to come in and challenge yourself to the Northwoods environment. We have a great staff up here. We are a very family-oriented business. And your boat club, Groupe Beneteau, they are a phenomenal company to work for.
It's nice to have a good company to work for. And I feel like you found a really great place. So really
I'm very, very fortunate. So
Mo, thank you for coming on and sharing your story. And I don't know, I feel like we could do a Mo part 2 because it's not even enough here.
That's the next layer. Yeah.
I saw Rachelle put into the chat the Facebook group. It's a closed Facebook group. You can feel very safe. We look at everyone who comes in. We can continue this conversation and following up with each other in the Facebook group. So I really suggest everyone take a look at joining that. Mo, again, thank you to everyone who showed up tonight and for took part in this and continue to support the NBDA. We're celebrating 75 years this year. The NBDA started in
so awesome. Yeah,
right, it's awesome. So we're just jazzed about that, and just thank you for your support. And Mo, again, I know you stayed extra. I know you're at the shop now. Everyone else has gone home, so thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I hope everyone has a great night. Yeah. Mo, would you share your contact if anyone wants to get a hold of you or follow up with you? Or
in terms of email address?
Maybe you could put it in the chat quickly and we can grab it out of there. That would be amazing.
I can.
That would be amazing. Yeah, and if anyone isn't able to pull it out of the chat, when she shares it now, you could just, I'm Heather at NBDA.com and I can get it over to you as well. Wow.
It's going to morph again, I'm sure. So.
That's okay.
Yeah. Okay. I can give you my current. So hopefully that will suffice.
There we go. It's Mo at bjsportshop.net. And I guess when we have everyone, happy holidays. This is a truly great time to just, reflect over the past year and spend time with your family and thank the ones that are important to you in your life and just keep that family close and hug them. And, it's about the moments and the memories. It's what we take with us, and do something out of the box, do something for yourself. And next year is going to be awesome. And, I'm thankful to every single person who's here, and I just hope everyone has a great evening. Mo, thank you again. Rachelle, thank you again. And with this, I think we're going to go, right? Should we let's go. Have a nice night, and we'll see everyone soon. Bye now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.